Hello, and welcome back. Sorry, I have not been here for a while. Obviously, if you have been looking at my Twitter or in my Discord, I went to Malaysia and I was gonna do some editing on my laptop, and it decided that it didn't want to have Windows on it anymore, so I had to completely reinstall it and get everything back. So it's been a bit difficult getting that together. So today's video is going to be a sort of rotation look and a talent build kind of quick look at RBGs and BGs, so you can get the most out of playing warrior. And that's not just like, oh, I'm doing quite a bit of DPS. It's like being one of the top DPS on the charts and really creating a whole load of pressure for your team. And some pretty fun combos that you can work together to use with a couple of teammates or like a couple of guildies that you like to do RBGs with, even if you don't necessarily have a team. They're quite nice and work really well at especially low MMRs, which is one of those games. But unfortunately, in this game, we don't do the combos that many times because it's a pretty straightforward win. We kind of just go through the motions, but I'll be talking about it as we go. So the build that I'm using in this one here is the Whirlwind build. So like you're going Whirlwind, Fever of Battle, Trauma, Dauntless, and you're obviously keeping Sharpened Blade and all that toolkit that we have before. So what this is used for is essentially creating a lot of pressure through your AoE of your Whirlwind, which on most maps can hit the majority of the team in the team fight, especially if they are a predominantly melee heavy team. So that's something to take into account when you're looking at the enemy team on at the start of the battleground. Oh, is it a lot of melee? Am I going to be able to hit these whirlwinds a lot, or do I want to go a different build to kind of like stay with it? And the other build would be the Ren build that you want to do. But here, even though it's quite a big map and they don't necessarily have a huge amount of melee, I can end up doing a lot of damage. So with this build, essentially, your main focus is doing your whirlwinds and cleaving if there's 3 or more targets. So you cleave and it gives you a 20% damage buff, and you whirlwind, trying to keep Colossus Smash and everyone with Warbreaker and stuff like that. And then obviously you have your Colossus Smash, Mortal Strike, which you want to be doing to create your single target pressure, and you want to be doing that whenever it procs, or when you're putting up a Sharpened Blade to kill a healer or to kill a specific DPS. But the most of your damage is going to be coming from your Whirlwind and your Trauma. Now, the other build, obviously, as I said, is the Ren build, and how I talked about it in the arena video, you want to be not trying to Ren too many targets. That doesn't want to be something that you're just constantly doing. It's like you don't want to be rend, and then you're still rending as your last rend falls off without doing any mortal strikes or anything like that, because you're not creating any single target pressure really for your team to like go out and get kills. Because as much as Rod is really good, you do want to be focusing on putting some pressure out onto specific targets with your mortal strike effect, and especially making utility of that Sharpened Blade, or making use of that Sharpened Blade that you have. So like here, even when I'm doing this AoE build, I'm still very much going after one target. I'm not really caring too much about how clumped people are, because the damage will come as you kind of do it. And when you're playing this build especially, and when you're a warrior in general, in BGs, you want to be near the flag, kind of making sure nobody's capping it. Because somebody caps on you, or somebody caps on you and you're at that base or anywhere near that base, it's essentially your fault. People are going to bring that up. So it's something that you need to make sure that you keep doing. So in this recording, actually, you can see me cap right next to a base a whole number of times because people aren't really doing their job spinning. But so with the Ren build, you keep the Rens up to like 3 or 4 targets, preferably like on priority targets like healers, or like maybe you make sure you put it on a rogue so he can't get out of the fight and go mess with one of your other bases because it keeps a bleed on him. And it just generally anyone who's really close to you, and it's going to be easier to do. And with the Ren build, you're probably going to be wanting to play Double Time instead of Stormbolt or Shockwave, just because it gives you a lot more to get around with. You're going to have a lot more rage because you're going to be charging more. So you're not going to be like, oh god, I have no rage because I'm just dumping it into Rens. So now that we talked about general, like straightforward rotation, well, obviously, like you have your burst rotation, battle cry, standard stuff for the Ren build. You're just gonna be using you try and put up as many Rens as you can. Probably 3 is probably best, or you'll be trying to do it too much. 3 or 4, and then you use your battle cry, and if it's AOE, Warbreaker, Blade Storm. And then use your Colossus Mass Mortal Strike, probably with a sharpened blade that's going to create as much amount of pressure as you can. Which you can see, it creates a huge amount of pressure onto this Ardrid, and we end up getting the kill there. With the Whirlwind build, what you're going to be wanting to do is essentially like trying to find them where they're the most grouped up, go in, use your Shockwave, pin them all down, and then you can Warbreaker, you Warbreaker cleave, and then pop your battle cry, and whirlwind, and then just blade storm out of it. Because that's going to give you a 20% damage buff on your whirlwind. All of them are going to have Colossus Smash on them, and then they're going to be bleeding for a huge amount from the trauma, and then you obviously blade storm just to kind of get that last ticks of damage out, and you execute whoever you can execute. So now that we talked about those like 2 rotations and 2 builds, essentially, I'm going to touch you quickly about some really cool combos that you can actually do, and actually so fun to do. They've worked for me against some pretty decent teams. It's kind of hard to avoid. It's a callback to sort of WoD RBGs where Frost DKs and Unholy DKs could get Gorfrien's Grasp. So you play with a Blood DK. So obviously, like one of your Frost or your Unholy like has to have a Blood spec and has to be reasonably good at it. Because if you look at the numbers here, Az is actually pulling a pretty reasonable amount of damage. So you combo that up and you go, all right, we're going to call out when we're going to use a Gorfrien's Grasp, but on a 1.5-minute cooldown. So you're going to want to have your Shockwave up for that. He Gorfrien's Grasp and use Shockwave, and you do your AoE rotation on it, and it will create so much pressure. And in this scenario, we have a Elemental Shaman as well. So we grip everyone in with Shockwave. The Elemental Shaman uses his artifact ability, the massive AoE Thunder Elemental, while we're AoEing massively. And he also puts his cap tone down so it goes off as the Shockwave comes off. So their entire team is essentially stunned in a position for a huge amount of time, taking an epic amount of damage, and you'll find that you either kill a whole bunch of people, you'll probably kill a few DPS, maybe a healer or 2, because the healer's going to focus on healing themselves or healing the other healers and keeping them up, whereas the DPS will probably just fall, and then they're going to have used all of the healing cooldowns in that opener, and you're going to get the first objective. And if the team isn't playing well that you're going up against, they might never recover from that, or it'll give you a significant advantage at the beginning of the game. So there's not too much else. It's more they're very simple rotations, but they're very, very good, and it's kind of, you just need to, especially the AoE one, it's a lot easier to kind of just get damage out and focus in with your team and work on these small little tricks that you want to do with your shockwaves and getting your kicks out and getting your sharpened blades up. So if you were playing in an RBG and you were asking me what build should you do, if you are not the target caller, Ren build is good and is can put out a lot of pressure. It lets you practice your rotation for 3s, and it's all good that way, and you don't have to get used to a new rotation. If you are a target caller, which I do quite frequently, I find that the Whirlwind build is a lot easier. This is because when you are on the Ren build, you have to keep swapping targets like 4 people. And sometimes people have assist macros. People are watching the Battleground targets thing to see how many people are targeting what target. And if you're playing the Ren build and you're telling people to go on a target that you're not on, they might not necessarily do it. They'll swap with you. They won't pay attention. Everyone will start splitting and just doing DPS and everything else. And if you're not in a rot comp, it won't really like pressure that well. I mean, your Rents will be putting out a lot of pressure, but like you're not really going to get anywhere because nobody's killing one target. You're not focused. So if you are that target color and you have this whirlwind build, that's going to be cleaving a whole bunch of people around you, but you just stay on that main target because 80% increased damage with whirlwind on your primary target is really good, which you get with that build. You're going to be creating a whole lot of pressure while also being able to stay on that target, keep your team focused, be able to put your sharpened blades out, and do a whole lot of damage. So that's what I would suggest you do if you were going to be target calling or you're trying to lead the group and you don't want to do too much or have to focus on tracking Rands, keeping Rand uptime, which can be quite a big pain in the ass, and you just want to have some fun with the game. That is definitely something I would recommend doing. So here, because I'm just about finished with it, I'm going to have a look on as to where we ended up with the damage here. And like, it doesn't look like I do a huge amount of damage, but this is what it is looking like. So I get 114 million, and that the only people who beat me, this is what it is essentially like at the end of the game, as we have 1,400 points, is our Elemental Shaman beat me, and the Boomy on the other team beat me. And that's not too bad classes to be beaten by. So we're playing against like a 1,600 team, that's why we didn't need to combo that many times, and it's fairly straightforward. But also, their team wasn't really that melee, and there weren't that many team fights that just happened. So if there are lots of team fights and you're being able to combo many times with their blood DK, with AoE cleaves and stuff like that, you'll be able to get a lot more damage out. And they're both very fun builds to do, but I seriously recommend, especially if you're a target caller or you're somebody who is trying to call strat, go for this whirlwind build. It is really good and super fun. So I hope this was interesting. I hope this was helpful, and I hope it turned out okay. So like, don't hold it against me too much if the quality's not as good, and or like there's some like flaws and various editing bits and stuff like that. Because I'm on my small laptop. I'm obviously in a different place. I'm in Malaysia. Trying to get things out as I can, and hopefully they're still to like a pretty reasonable quality. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the Discord on Twitter. All the links will be in the description. Comment on this. Ask me anything that you want to get answered, because I tend to do it straight away either on the Reddit post that I make when I post out these videos, or right on the video. As soon as I see it, I'll comment on it, and I'll be trying to get more videos out later this week now that I've fixed my laptop. I appreciate you all, and see you next time. Peace.